Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, first off, we are going to say welcome back to Sweden. So over the next few videos we're going to be working our way through a bunch of Swedish beers and Danish beers that I built up both before and after I went to Japan. We've got quite a bit of a stockpile that we need to work our way through, but some very, very nice stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy these ones, but I will be publishing things quite quickly over the next wee while just to kind of get these reviews out there. But yeah, we're going to kick off then by returning to a brewery that has featured on the channel many times before. These guys are a very, very well respected name when it comes to the Swedish craft beer scene. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're still best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But in more recent years they have been diversifying and doing a lot of different styles. But definitely one of the breweries that you really need to check out if you're interested in the Swedish craft beer scene. But the beer itself is one of their latest releases through Stigbergets here in Sweden. It's a style that I know these guys can do very well, and it's also been released to celebrate quite a significant anniversary as well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we review the Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition these days. But for this review, we are going to return to the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Trippelmås, which kind of means like triple seagull, I guess we could say. It comes in at 10% ABV, and this is a New England hazy imperial triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. But this beer was brewed to celebrate their 10th anniversary. So yeah, 2023 is the 10th anniversary of Stigbergets. But yeah, this is one of two beers that they released to celebrate the anniversary, and we have the other one in the fridge, but it's a bit of a darker beer, so we'll go to that one a wee bit later on, I think. But if memory serves me correctly, this beer was released as part of the local Småskaligt assortment through Stigbergets here in Sweden for March of 2023. But yeah, 10% triple IPA from Stigbergets. We've had some really, really nice examples of this particular style, and sub-style indeed, from this brewery over the years. The Chronic is one that really kind of sticks in mind when it comes to this particular subcategory as well. But yeah, style, as I say, I know these guys can do very, very well. Let's crack on and see what this beer has in store for us. And of course, a massive happy 10th anniversary to Stigbergets Bryggeri, of course. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done up from Stigbergets Bryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging systems. Just go into the homepage, use the search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, prefecture, whatever you like in there. If I review beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find You'll find this one in the Swedish playlist, and there are playlists from many other countries as well that you can check out. But like I say, Stigbergets are one of the Swedish breweries that you really need to check out. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I will tell you a little bit about these guys once again. So, Stigbergets Bryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So these guys owned two bars that shared the one kitchen. This is Bar Kino and the Hagbjörn's Cafe, which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and these places opened up back in 2007, but the building itself is actually an independent cinema, and if you want to see what it looks like, you can check out my Out and About video that I filmed there back in 2019. But originally, the idea that they had was that they wanted to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars, but this led to them kegging and selling the beer to other pubs, and eventually to bottling the beers, which began in November of 2014. But the original beers they were brewing were mainly English and German styles, but they soon started to experiment with the more hoppy American style beers, and this is where they really started to make their name. So the original head brewer was Ole Andersson, who is one of the co-owners of OO Brewing, and he stayed with the company until April of 2017, and he was replaced for a short period of time by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds in Munster in Indiana, very close to Chicago in the US, but like I say, he only stayed for about 3 or 4 months or something like that, if memory serves me correctly. But soon after this, they moved to a new site at Partihallarna, where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches at a time, and they also began working on some sour beers at this stage as well. They also stopped selling the 330ml bottles and put their beers into the 440ml cans, and this allowed them to export their beer across the European continent and further afield. These days, they've got a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Munreid, who used to work for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating in the area. As of summer 2020, they are based in the Ringön area, and they've been brewing some lambic beers and things recently, from what I understand, and they were saying when they moved into this place there was the possibility for swimming facilities, and they're going to open up a bar and things there too. So we'll need to just see how that progresses over the next little while, because a lot of these plans were kind of put on hold owing to the COVID pandemic, but I'm sure Stigbergets will get on these as soon as they can. They opened up a bar in Stockholm in April of 2020 as well, and they've also got their own folköl shop in Gothenburg these days as well. And for those of you who don't know, folköl in Sweden, people's beer if we can translate it in such a way, is anything that is below 3.5% and below. That can be sold privately in supermarkets and things, but anything above that EBV has to be sold through the state monopoly, which is Stigbergets. But yeah, over the years these guys have developed lots and lots of different recipes. They became really well known because of their hazy New England IPAs, but yeah, two of the beers that you really need to check out from this brewery would be the Amazing Haze and also the new and improved GBG Beer Week beer. So those were two of the kind of cult classic Swedish New England IPAs. But like I say, in recent years, they've been brewing a good few different styles, and these guys are always pretty damn solid in whatever they do based on my previous experiences. But yeah, as of April 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 240 different kinds of beer, and like I say, a lot of New England IPAs, but many other things as well, and they are very solid all round. So definitely a Swedish brewery that I would recommend that you check out. But yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's that for your history section. Let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So once again, this is a 440ml can. There you can see the Mås. The seagull's just kind of chilling on the front of this one there. So you can see the Stigbergets signature, 2013 to 2023. Plain silver top on the can there. Doesn't really tell you much on the side about this beer, but I'll just let you have a little look at the overall artwork on this one. The Stigbergets artwork is always pretty nice, I have to say. You can see there's like a seagull cub or something. What would you call it? A seagull chick. That's what I was looking for, the word. English isn't working these days. But yeah, the seagull chick just chilling on the cloud there, pulling along the little banner. If memory serves me correctly, I think I paid about 60 Swedish kronor for this one, so that is about €6, £5.50 sterling, somewhere in the region like $6.50 American. But for a 10% New England triple IPA, I think that's pretty damn good, to be honest with you. When I was searching about for this one, I actually couldn't find out what hops and things had been used in this beer, but yeah, that was it. So yeah, we know it'll be a good New England IPA, we know what Stigbergets are like. I don't think we need to say anything more. We can get this guy open and have a little look at it, so let's do it. So, a little bit of smoke on the opening as we open up the can, but let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. So, that is maybe about 80% of the can into the glass there, and we can see this one does look pretty nice. So before the head disappears, we can see that this beer is poured with just under a half finger of a frothy, I would say cream colour head, and that is just fading away to be a thinner foamy layer, as you can see. But yeah, I'll let you have a wee look at the bubbles on this one. It's kind of medium-sized bubbles on the head there. So yeah, that is kind of interesting. Now I can see that on the camera the beer is appearing with a slightly darker colour than it is to the naked eye. So to you guys it appears quite amber, but to me it's actually like a very kind of milky, thick, like mango lassi or something like that. It really looks like that. So yeah, I would compare the colour of this beer to like a sort of mango juice or something like that. I always like comparing the appearance of New England IPAs to fruit juices, because that's tropical fruit juices, because that's really just what they remind me of one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but yeah, it looks nice. A few little wispy bits on the top there, and a thicker ring just around the edge of the glass. But overall, it does look pretty nice, I have to say. Yeah, so in terms of the colour of this one, like I say, it's kind of a more mango juice colour. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect that as well. But yeah, you just need to yeah, you don't often have to care about those latter two variables when it comes to New England IPAs. The level of haze in this one is pretty damn impressive. This is certainly one of the superior and gloopier IPAs that I've come across from Stigbergets, but in fairness, you can't expect that when it's a big 10%. But the level of haze in these beers, of course, depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you're using as well. So yeah, certainly looks the part of a New England IPA of any description. I think we've said everything we need about the appearance, so let's have a wee look at the aroma and see how this beer turns out. So let's do this. To say aroma-wise, this is pretty damn nice. You can smell it's pretty big and boozy, which you'd expect from a New England triple IPA, but it's not. As I say, it's not madly. Yeah, it's not madly kind of pungent, actually. It's quite a soft and kind of creamy aroma that you're getting out of this one. So as I've said in many reviews before, for me there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to New England IPAs. You can have 6 elements of the flavour. You've got the more kind of farmhousey, yeasty side of things. You've got the kind of rye leaning, grainy side as well, and those 2 elements are a little bit more prevalent in American brewed New England IPAs, but you've also got the barley malt bread, the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, and also the sweet side of things as well. So these are the 6 elements of flavour that you should consider when it comes to this particular beer style. But yeah, on the in this case, this is quite interesting. So you've got quite a nice green component to this one, and a lot of juicy fruity character. But the malty side of this beer comes across as being a little bit more oaty and creamy leaning, actually. And one thing I've always said about New England IPAs is that you can often use the oaty character as a rough guide to how fresh the beer is. So essentially, the creamier the oats in the beer smell, the fresher your New England IPA is. But if you've got more dry character out of them, the older it is. It's quite simple. But yeah, as I say, the kind of these kind of aspects to the beer are really quite interesting. For me, this one's still got a hell of a lot of oaty creaminess to it, but I've had this beer about 6 or 7 weeks, so this is the big thing, is I couldn't film this one. I wanted to film this one before I went to Japan, but technical issues with the camera and stuff prevented me from doing that, unfortunately. So yeah, just kind of how it goes sometimes. But yeah, this one's got a hell of a lot of oaty creaminess to it, which is really nice. But let's try and just break the aroma down and describe it a wee bit more in depth for you, because this is very nice. So, backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely little bit of fresh white bread crusty character that you always get from this style. So fresh white bready bread crust in there, little touch of a kind of woody note as well. Then you've got a wee bit of cracker, but for me, the malty base in this beer is a lot more bready. It's like quite a dense and quite sweet white bread that you get out of this one. There's a lot of that kind of barley malt white bread going on. You can smell the wheat, and the wheat actually acts as a little bit more of a kind of smoothing agent in this one. There's a wee touch of bitiness in the back of the nose there that you can get for sure. But yeah, so as I say, a little touch of wheaty bitiness in there. Some a little touch of wheaty bitiness. Some oaty. There's a lot of oatiness on top of that, but yeah, the wheat for me, you can smell the wheat just densifying out these whole bready characters. And then you've got some fluffy white, as I say, you've got the fluffy white bread underneath there, the dense white bread, and then above that you start to get the oaty notes. So for me, you can smell a lot of creaminess in this one, but you do get little elements of the drier aspects of the the oats in this beer as well. And as I say, the oats are an indicator quite often of how old your New England IPA is. But this one really smells pretty fresh, which is kind of interesting. It does still have a lot of its creaminess to it, but it could just be because of how strong it is. In terms of the sweeter side of the aroma, there is a little bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy kind of thing, which is common, more common the higher up the alcohol scale you go with these beers. But this one doesn't smell too sweet. A little bit of it there. I think we'll get more of it in the flavour of the beer, to be honest with you. But there is a little bit of that there, and also some nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character as well. So, yeah, aroma-wise, the malty side of this one is quite nice, but quite definitely quite an oaty and creamy leaning New England IPA for me. On the hoppy side of things then, we'll kick off with the green component. So, with these beers, you have to remember that there are 3 different kinds of hoppings that you can do in IPAs. Early edition hopping, quite often within the first hour of the wort boil, will give you mainly bitterness. Late edition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil will give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. This is assuming you have a 90-minute wort boil. Of course, you can extend that or shorten it or whatever. But yeah, you get the idea. But dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, that is all about flavour and aroma. So New England IPAs tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping, which gives you a brighter green component in the aroma, whereas West Coast IPAs will use all 3, and early edition hopping gives you more of a kind of deep and dank aroma to your beer, and that tends to dominate in my experience. So these are things you need to think about with the green components of these beers. But for me, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness in there and a wee touch of herbal character, but the green component is mainly a very bright floral type thing that you get out of this one. So above that, you've got that little bit more of a kind of grassy character as well. It's quite a light grassy note in fairness. For me, this one's more of a kind of bright floral aromaticity that comes out of the beer. So yeah, aroma-wise, it's quite nice in that sense. I don't think we need to say more about the green component of this one. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, for me, this is very, very tropical actually. I get lots of juicy, quite ripe passion fruit out of this one actually. Almost a little bit of like a pink grapefruit, and that's going to be, what hop is that again? It's not Strata. Talus actually can give you that, so I wonder if there's a wee bit of Talus in this one, to be honest. So I'm getting a very ripe kind of red, it's like a red grape, pink grapefruity note out of this one, but then lots and lots of passion fruit for sure. Big juicy mangoes, all things that you kind of expect. It's a bit difficult to play guess the hops these days. I used to like doing that back in the day when there wasn't quite so many of them, but these days it's very difficult. But yeah, slightly kind of pinky grapefruity note, which makes me wonder. But Talus, but it doesn't have the coconutty notes, which is another thing. So yeah, on top of this, you've got lots of big juicy passion fruit, big juicy mangoes as well, and like you've got the smoother apricot and stuff like that underneath too. But this beer really leans toward the more tropical side of things. I think there is a little element of a kind of tangerine orange or something like that, which could be, you know, it could be a bit of Sabro, it could be Amarillo, it could be Mosaic, Mandarin of Bavaria. Nectaron these days is getting more popular. There's lots of hops out there that it could be, in fairness. But yeah, you get a wee bit of the more oily orangey character in there, but apricots, pineapples, juicy mango, passion fruit, all of these kind of things going on in this one. I do get a little bit of an almost gooseberry element out of this one too, which could be Nelson Sauvin or German Hallertau Blanc. So yeah, there's a wee bit of that going on in this one. But whatever it is, it smells nice. And the other thing I would say is that when I sugar the beer up, I get a little bit of this kind of pander violet, sort of candied, fruity character coming out of the beer as well. Then that's probably from the yeast, in fairness. But yeah, aroma-wise, this is very, very nice, and I'm just really curious to see how it's going to turn out. So let's have a wee look at this and see what it's all about. So yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to just enjoy that aroma before you get stuck in. But we should try this one now. This is the Trippelmås, the Triple Seagull, the 10th anniversary IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg in the Rhine area. So yeah, New England Triple IPA, 10% ABV. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, to say that's pretty nice. And it still feels like, it does still feel pretty fresh. It's still giving you a lot of oaty creaminess and things like that as well. It has, I would say that compared to the aroma, it has got a little bit more kind of wheaty bitiness to it and kind of floral character as well. So yeah. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in this beer, I think, is it's really, really nice. It gets a big thumbs up from me. It's definitely in keeping with the standards that you would expect from Stigbergets when it comes to pretty much any New England hazy type IPA that they've done before. Yeah, good stuff. So quite a fitting tribute to 10 years actually. Like I say, I'm not drinking this beer in its prime freshness. I'm sure it would have been even better, 7 or 8 weeks ago when it was released through Systembolaget, but it's always typical, technical issues happen at times, but yeah, I think this is pretty damn solid actually. So let's try and break this down and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth if we can. So, yeah, on the, I would say that overall, very kind of creamy and oaty leaning New England IPA, but more wheatiness comes out a bit further gone. Big tropical fruit notes and a nice bright green component. You can't really ask for much more than that. But let's focus on that middle third of the palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. And it is very smooth actually. But further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch more woodiness out of the beer. There's a wee bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker in there, which is nice. But then above that, you start to get the bready notes out of the beer. So yeah, the bready notes that come out of the beer in this one are very nice as well, very dense actually. So you have got a slight, above the kind of cream cracker for me, you've got a little bit of a more dense wholemeal, brown bready character coming out of this beer. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. But on top of that, you can feel the white bready character in the beer as well. So yeah, more dense brown bready character in there, and then a white bready note coming out of that. And the white bready character is quite, it's almost got a little touch of sweetness to it. So it's not too dense, it's not too light and airy, but it's just right. So yeah, I like that with this one. Yeah, on the above the kind of white bready layers in this one, and I would say that breadiness gets sweeter and sweeter the further into the beer you go. But above that, you've got the more dense, you have the more dense wheaty note out of this beer. And the wheat's quite interesting because on the middle third of the palate, it's very smooth and it has a little touch of zippiness to it. But on top of that, you do start to get the nice kind of oaty, creamy notes out of this one. And as I say, I really do like how that comes together. The oaty notes in this are very, very nice, and they do come across as very fresh, but again, you need to remember this is a triple IPA, so it's going to hold up a little bit more over time compared to the singles and doubles actually. So that's maybe where my kind of hypothesis about the oaty character kind of falls down a wee bit between, the creamier they are, the fresher it is, the drier they are, the older the beer is. But yeah, you can feel down the middle line of your tongue, you've got a lovely creamy oaty character, and then as you move out toward the edges of that middle third of your palate, it's just got a little touch more kind of dryness to it. So yeah, it's great. In the very centre of your palate, you've got a nice little kind of oily circle to this one. So yeah, nice little bit of a more oily, as I say, a nice little bit of an oily, kind of sweet, butterscotchy, butter candy note out of this one. As you move further out from that, there's a wee bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing with this one. So yeah, you can feel that. I wonder if there's a bit of golden promise in this. It's very familiar, but yeah, to be honest, I think after that, that covers pretty much everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate. Let's look at the back third of the palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, kind of soft and white bready. Then the base of the back third of the palate, you've got the kind of bread crusty note again. It's a little bit drier and more grainy. As I've always said, drier and more grainy flavours come out further back on the palate compared to the sweeter flavours which come out further forward. So that needs to be taken into account. But on the in terms of the other things with this beer, on top of that, you feel the crackery notice there, but it's a little bit drier. You've got the kind of a little bit of a brown bready layer, which feels a little bit taller and more airy. Then you've got the fluffier white bready layer, which feels again quite light and airy. And above that, you get the wheat, and you can feel the wheat just densifying out the beer at the top of that bit of the palate there. So yeah, that's quite interesting. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer in this one is really nice. Too, you can just feel that the more and more you drink this beer, the more the fruitiness you get. But above the wheat, you start to get the yeasty side of this beer as well. And the yeasty note for me is like a quite dry white bread, but there's a little element of woodiness and crackeriness to it. But as I say, that sits on top of everything. The back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller, and as you come further forward into the middle third of the palate, it just condenses down and squashes together. And yeah, I really like how everything pieces together in that one. So yeah, nice stuff. On the hoppy side of things then, for me, this beer, the back corners of the palate, you can feel there is a little touch of earthiness there to this one. But as you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of your palate, it's got a little bit more floral aromaticity to it. But I don't find this beer overly kind of bright and floral. Actually, it's kind of smooth in a lot of ways. So yeah, for me that is quite, I have to say that is quite nice. So a little bit of floral aromaticity there, then round the front curve of the palate, it's just a wee bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. And the green component, actually, the more that I drink of this beer, the kind of wetter it becomes. So that's an interesting observation. But yeah, green component in this beer is quite wet and more grassy and floral leaning, I would say. That's definitely fair. So let's have a wee look at the fruity side of the beer then, the front third of your palate. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there, kind of white bready, but quite dense at the same time. The base of that front third of your palate is a little bit more kind of bread crusty. Yeah, you've got a little bit of the bread crusty note in there. On top of that, you have a little bit of a more kind of dense white bread as well. And yeah, again, I really like how that goes together. So yeah, more of a kind of dense white bready note underneath, but then above everything you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And yeah, the fruity character is kind of what you'd expect in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if this is something along the lines of like a, maybe like a Galaxy Nelson Sauvin Mosaic or a Citra Nelson Mosaic or something like that. There's something that feels quite familiar about this, the fruity character in this beer. So if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little tiny touch of the grapefruit. But as you move further forward, it's a little bit more oily and kind of passion fruity. And then as you reach as you move further forward, it's got a nice little bit of mango to it, but I find it more passion fruity. But yeah, there's underneath that you've got a little bit of apricot. Yeah, there's a wee bit of apricot in there, a little bit of a kind of wee bit of apricot, wee bit of a kind of mango-y character to it, and yeah, I like that about this one actually. So that's nice. You get the nice tropically notes out of this beer, but I'd say the more and more that I drink of it, it's kind of a quite juicy and ripe mango that you get out of the beer. wee bits of apricot, wee bit of pineapple in the middle, but as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, there's more of a kind of, there's a little bit of a more kind of gooseberry note underneath, like Hallertau Blanc, Nelson Sauvin, something like that, and above that there's a wee bit of a more oily, zesty, kind of orangey character as well. So yeah, I do like how all that pieces together. So yeah, that is really nice, this one. I say, get a little bit more of an orangey, ripe kind of, I'd say it's quite a zesty orange actually, when you take the beer in, but then the front half of your palate gives you more of that kind of oily gooseberry thing out of this one. So I think this is somewhere along the lines of, you've got a more orangey hop in here, then you've got a tropical, you've got one or two tropical ones, and then you've got a more kind of like Nelson Sauvin, Hallertau Blanc type thing in there as well. So I think this is maybe 4 hops, because the tropical note's a little bit complex, I would say. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's like Citra. I would not be surprised if this beer was like Citra, Galaxy, Mosaic, and Nelson Sauvin. That, it feels familiar in that sense, and I would really not be surprised if it's something along those lines. It just really feels very familiar in terms of its fruity character, but it's really nice. And of course, when they're going to do a 10th anniversary IPA, they're going to put something out that they kind of know people will like, and you can't go wrong with those hops. That's absolutely fair to say. But yeah, I think that covers what we need to say about the flavour of this beer. We can round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, the mouthfeel in this beer, it's quite, I'd say that it's bottom end to full bodied, I think is a good place with this one. The carbonation is very smooth, it has a little bit of an oily character to it, but it still feels kind of clean at the same time. On top of that, you have, you do have just a little bit of oily slickness in there. But in terms of the IBUs with this beer, I think this one is 50 or 60 IBUs. It just feels a little bit more bitter. You get more and more bitterness out of this beer the further into the aftertaste you go. But the malty base has a little bit of graininess to it. You've got a bit of smooth breadiness in there, wee touch of sweetness, but yeah, mainly a smooth, kind of more creamy malt base. Then on the fruity side of things, a mix of tropical fruit and a more oily, zesty orange and kind of gooseberry type thing in there. All things that you'd expect. But yeah, the way that all of this goes together, I think, is very nice, and it's another very, very solid New England triple IPA from Stigbergets, which is what we would expect. They know what they're doing when it comes to this style, and like I say, this is one of the Swedish breweries that I would recommend you check out, generally speaking. But if you're particularly interested in New England hazies, these guys are the kind of founders, almost the founders of that style in Sweden, along with OO Brewing, because of course the original head brewer is now dedicating his time to his own company. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Trippelmås 10% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slange it, Skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Cheers.